This is a show about the things we like who is better, Kirk or Christopher Pike. Talking about nerd things late at night, telling you factoids that are out of sight. It's a show we like to call Late Night Taco Delivery. Wait, what? That's what we're actually calling it? Alright.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. The following program is intended for mature audiences. It contains adult language, adult content, and adult subject matter. In other words, we say fuck a lot. Listener discretion is advised. And we are off.
Woo!
Hello, Jonathan. How are you this evening?
I'm doing all right, Dan. How about you?
Not too bad, except for this mini windstorm we've been having.
Oh, yeah, dude. It was awful. There was a horrible accident on, I think, I-75 today.
Ooh.
Yeah, two semi-trucks and another car were involved.
Oh, man, that sucks.
Yeah, pretty gruesome, actually, from what I hear.
And the worst thing that happened to me, I lost internet. I lost power and internet for like 2 hours.
A travesty, my friend, a travesty.
I know. And apparently, my parents own a Chihuahua kite.
Okay.
They were unaware of this.
I could have gone my entire life without knowing that, actually.
Yeah, my parents owned a Chihuahua and took her outside, and she took off like 2 feet in the air.
Oh, God, now I'm picturing that.
And just poor this little puppy doing little paws, like pumping crazily in the air, going, ah! Screaming Spanish the entire time, obviously.
Oh, of course.
Well, the funny thing is when they first got the dog, she didn't answer to English, she answered to Spanish.
Huh.
Apparently it was picked up in a housing development that was very heavily populated by the Latinos.
Fair enough.
And so when they picked up from that, apparently it was somebody's pet that was never claimed, and she spoke Spanish.
Well, I guess, if you've got a system in play.
Mm-hmm. They finally got her to speak English, so she's now a bilingual dog.
That's impressive.
Okay, anyway. So, we got a couple things we're going to try tonight. As we said in our last podcast, we're still trying to get our footing here.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight we're going to talk about the history of special effects, and we're also going to talk about what we kind of geek out on. And then we're going to do another Thou Shalt Not.
Of course.
Now, Jonathan had mentioned to me earlier on that you guys don't really know much about us. You haven't gotten us our origin story yet.
And thankfully, neither of them involve, parents being shot in an alleyway and then us taking an oath of vengeance or, stuff like that.
No. Or getting bitten by a radioactive spider or hiding from a gamma ray bomb.
Or having radioactive materials splashed into our eyes, and that's why we do audio podcasts instead of video.
Yeah, or being born a mutant and being able to cure the world through the power of disco.
Wait a minute. Who says I'm not?
I'd pay money to see this. Okay, anyway, you want to go first, Jonathan, or shall I?
I'll go first. It's short.
Okay. You haven't been around long as I have, unfortunately.
Yeah. Let's see. I was born in Provo, Utah in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've been around for, roughly 20 years. I moved to Ohio in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically the geographical history. My first comic book was a Marvel Age Free Comic Book Day giveaway. And it involved the Vulture and Spider-Man.
Cool.
My favorite movie of all time is Metropolis. That's never getting shaken. And, I don't know, I guess we'll find out more as time goes by.
Yeah, you still got plenty of years. Well, I was born in 1973 in Fostoria. And apparently I got bored when we were 5 years old and moved to a small town called Portage, Ohio, which is just right outside of Bowling Green.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been a nerd for as long as I can remember. Both my parents are nerds, sci-fi nerds. My father's a huge Asimov Heinlein fan. My mom reads a lot of Anne McCaffrey and other fantasy novels. My first comic was the 1976 bicentennial special of Captain America that my grandparents got me. And if I'm not mistaken, it was drawn by the great Jack Kirby.
Cool.
And I remember Captain America traveling through time and having to fight, fighting the forces of communism apparently against with the help of Ben Franklin. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah. I have been around for quite a while, so my first sci-fi convention was MarCon in 1990.
My first... Okay, I can match that, actually. My first sci-fi convention was Star Wars Celebration 1 in 1999.
Okay. That was down in Florida?
No, that was not either coast, actually. It was in Denver, Colorado.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking the Star Wars weekends, which they do at Hollywood Studios every year down in Florida.
Nope. We're talking
Okay.
Star Wars Celebrations.
Okay. But anyway, I grew up watching sci-fi. I grew up watching reruns of Star Trek, and I watched Space 1999. And my first cartoon that I really remember watching was Battle of the Planets, which is the redubbed G-Force.
Right.
And I grew up in the 80s, which is kind of like a halcyon age of sci-fi. There was a lot of really bad sci-fi that was on, but by God, I watched it all. The Powers of Matthew Starr, The Phoenix, Wizards and Warriors. There's also all the movies, Short Circuit, and The Goonies, and Ghostbusters.
So the 80s were a fertile time for you then.
Oh yeah, that was definitely the time I was born, and my mind was given what I needed to enjoy the life. I'm a lifelong Disney freak. I've been watching Disney movies for as far as I can remember. I mean, I grew up on Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck.
I'll be darned to find somebody who didn't.
Yeah. Well, the new generation's not too keen on them these days.
Yeah, same with Star Wars, unfortunately.
We'll find. Well, they got ruined by the prequels.
Yeah.
But we can talk that. Well, that's another show.
Yeah, that's another show.
I did a college internship with Disney back in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at a taco joint called El Parata y El Perico, which roughly translated from the original Spanish is Taco Bell with Illusions of Grandeur. But while I was there, I was able to experience a lot of different things. They got really tired of me at the Disney archives because I was in there almost every day I had off.
Now, was this California or Florida?
This was in Florida.
Oh, okay.
I've never been out to Disneyland. I'd like to one of these days, but I've only been to California a few times for conventions.
I've never been to either Disney theme park.
I'm very interested in going out to Disney World now because they've been doing a lot of work down there.
Yeah.
And we can discuss this in a further podcast. But basically, what's happened is, as far as I can tell, is that Disney has had to play catch up for the first time because Universal so outclassed them in attractions and attention to detail.
Yes. I remember hearing about all this.
I can go off for about at least a half hour about the differences because when I graduated college in 2000, I kicked around Ohio for a bit. Then in 2004, I went down to Florida and I worked at Disney and Universal at the same time.
That sounds pretty intense, actually.
It was. I worked I basically did parade control and crowd control at the Disney Hollywood Studios, and then at Universal, I worked at the Men in Black Alien Attack ride. And so I got to see on a daily basis the difference in how they treated the employees, how they treated the guests, how they treated the rides they had, the attention to detail, and even at the time, I really thought that Universal did a much better job. But anyway, so I worked both those jobs for about a year. Then I got a job working at an autographed memorabilia shop for another year, and then basically, and I'm not ashamed to say it, my life fell apart. So I moved back to Ohio, lived here for another 2 years, and I moved to Tennessee to live with some friends because they, said they had some really cool stuff going on. And unfortunately, it did not happen. So I moved back here to Ohio in 2010, and I've been here ever since.
There you go, then.
Mm-hmm. So, shall we start with our history of special effects?
Hang on, there's one other thing that we need to start out with.
Aha. What we're geeking out on right now?
Yes. What is the latest on the geek news for you?
Well, the latest in the geek news is they've released a trailer for the Cinderella movie.
Okay.
And I have absolutely zero interest in it.
Apparently, there is a new Batman Arkham Knight trailer.
Yep, I actually watched that earlier, the one where he basically breaks in and out of Ace Chemicals.
Yep.
And this is for the PS4, and holy cow, man, we are getting so close to the Uncanny Valley, it's not even funny anymore.
I know, right? I'm just waiting for it to finally flip over and we have, full-on movies that are just playable.
Yeah.
Either that or we switch over to the Oasis.
The Oasis. For those who are not in the know, that's from a book called Ready Player One, which you all should read.
Or listen to the audiobook by Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton?
Will Wheaton.
Wheaton, yes. It is quite an amazing audiobook, and I don't listen to audiobooks. I read all the time. But yes, actually there's a video I saw. Someone has rebuilt a 1980s arcade in Oculus Rift.
Dude.
Yes, so basically all you need to do is walk in and you get to play all these games as if you were in the old time arcade. And I'm like, this is one more step closer to the Oasis.
Woo!
But what's got me going on, going back to VR, is a series of books called Otherland by a guy named Tad Williams.
Okay.
It is set in a VR universe called Otherland, and it's 4 books, and they're like really freaking long. It's like almost, what's his name? Stevenson. Wrote Snow Crash.
I couldn't tell you.
Neil Stevenson.
Okay.
Neil Stevenson.
Sorry, I was going to go
like Neil
Robert
Stevenson
Lewis
length.
if you said Stevenson, so.
No, it's like Neil Stevenson length. They're these freaking long books. I've been reading. It normally takes me like 2 days to read a novel, and it took me like an entire week to finish this one.
All right.
But it's set in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Neil Stevenson. Where there's a whole VR world, and there's a group called the Grail Brotherhood, which I haven't figured out exactly what they're trying to do yet.
Okay.
But a small group of but what they're doing is causing real life issues for people. Kids are going into comas that they can't seem to get out of, and their souls are being trapped in the computer world.
Huh.
And so the main characters are a woman named Irene and her bushman friend. They're African, and her bushman friend Zabu.
I see.
Yes, they actually try. The guy actually tries to write bushman language. It's rather hilarious.
Oh God.
So every time I see Zabu, I start laughing. But they are currently VR icons, avatars in the game, in this world called Otherland, which you keep commenting about how amazing the processing speed is and how it's just so far beyond. But now they're trapped in the game and they can't get out.
That'd be a problem.
Mm-hmm. And I just started the second book, and it's got so much going on, it's impossible to really talk about it all. But apparently it's been optioned for a movie, and there was an MMO based on this that went through open beta and closed beta and then died.
Sheesh.
So take of that what you will. But I saw some trailers, and it looked very pretty.
That's sad to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Recently I acquired the entire album, The Rocky Horror Punk Show. Now, I'm a huge fan of Rocky Horror Picture Show, so basically, if there's something Rocky Horror related, I'm interested automatically. Well, for the most part. And so, one day while I was cruising around looking for a specific artist that I really like called Tsunami Bomb, I found they did a cover of Planet Schmanet Janet from the movie.
Okay.
So, I was intrigued, so I looked up the rest of the album, and I've been geeking out about it ever since. It was released in 2003, and it's got stuff by Alkaline Trio. It's all over the map.
I know who they are. Okay. Was it? I'm trying to remember. Was this a... It actually did exist. Okay. Well, apparently there was... How can I say this without sounding like a total idiot? But you know what? Fuck it. The Rocky Horror Muppet Show.
Oh my God.
It exists. It was written by a friend of mine named Tom Smith. He's a well-known folk singer.
Oh boy.
And there are tracks available on Bandcamp.com.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. But I remember I was just like, wait, was that real or was that some sort of a fever dream? Because sometimes I can't tell.
Huh.
But yes, well, speaking, I think the last time I actually did Rocky Horror was when you were born, 1995.
Wow.
Yeah, I played Riff Raff for about a year.
That sounds awesome. I'd love to play Riff Raff.
It's been so, I mean, this was back in the late 80s, early 90s when, the Clazel, which was a movie theater down in BG, Bowling Green, would have Rocky Horror every weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing I really miss about the town is now it's been turned into this crappy upscale club.
Oh yeah, plus
where they bring white girl wasted to a new level.
Well, if you think about it, it is a college town, so...
Oh, I know.
Oh well. So, shall we begin with the history of special effects?
Let us begin. And here's the strange thing, folks. Jonathan, even though he's much younger than I am, knows a hell of a lot more about classic movies than I do.
Strangely enough. That's actually another part of my origin story. When I was a small child, one of the few channels that I would watch on a regular basis was Turner Classic Movies, TCM.
Oh yeah, I used to watch that a lot when I still had watched television.
Yeah, so for me it was like Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon and TCM. And so that's something that I've carried all through my life. I actually got to see Harold Lloyd's Safety Last, which is hilarious, still to this day.
Oh yeah.
At the Salt Lake City Capitol Theater.
Nice.
With a live performance of This American Life. Which was really super cool. And I also try to attend as much as possible the local Gish Film Theater over at Bowling Green State University.
Yeah, I've been to a couple number of those over the years. I keep forgetting to check the schedule, though.
Oh yeah, good stuff there. Good stuff.
Oh yeah, I used to drag my friends over when they had like a Fritz Lang festival or something. I saw Metropolis there. I saw M there.
Yeah, that's actually how I became very good friends with one of the presenters, because the very first show that I went to was Metropolis. Now, I had already seen Metropolis. It was already my favorite movie when I went in. But then I went to the Gish, and they played it, and I went up to one of the presenters and just said, "I'm really glad you showed a Fritz Lang film." And this is one of his favorite stories to tell. My friend...
Because how old were you?
I was... let's see, this is 2008.
Okay.
So
you're like 13, 14?
Yeah, roughly around there. So, yeah, I love my classic movies.
Oh, yes.
And I also really like the odd movies that people aren't as likely to go and look for themselves. Which is why I have now a bit of a reputation for that very tendency among my friends. He's the weird guy.
He's the weird guy that collects the strange movies.
Indeed, friend, indeed. And my lovely co-host Dan is more interested in the CGI boom and the boom that really, I guess, happens roughly around Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say I've never, I watched a lot of classics, sci-fi and such when I was younger. My dad used to have this bad habit of waking me up at 2 a.m. in the morning and bringing me downstairs to watch, Turner Classic Movies when they were showing a silent film he wanted me to watch, like Battleship Potemkin or The General or...
oh, I love The General. I have it on
Modern
DVD.
Times. Yeah, those are great films. But I do, for the most part, follow the technological jumps of films. And animation really started a whole different boom, which I'm sure that John will be talking about, George Méliès and various other
well, actually,
guys.
Méliès really didn't do as much with the animation, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
So, let us begin. I guess you could really start with animation with the Edward Maybridge's Horse in Motion, which was 1878. And it basically, the film was made on a bet, funny enough. I love things like that. The idea was that Dude Boy 1 said that horse has at least 1 foot on the ground at all times. And Maybridge was like, alright, well, I'll see that bet, and I'll film it. And everybody's like, what the hell is filming? So it basically, funny, in order to get the all the horse movements. He invented bullet speed and set up a series of cameras across a racetrack. And as the horse went by, took all the pictures, and sure enough, the horse had all four hooves off the ground at one point.
Right, and inadvertently, he also invented the motion picture at the same time.
Indeed. From there, he also did a bunch of primitive motion studies with naked people.
Yay, naked people.
Oh yeah, a lot of fun. And of course, there's a reason, because, they're naked.
Mm. Well, it's just like I used to do nude modeling on campus for art classes. You got to see how the human body can work.
Fair enough.
And yes, you heard right. I was naked in front of a bunch of people. I have no shame.
I will try to chase that away from my mind later on.
I recommend bourbon.
Yes, all the strong stuff. From there, we get Edison and his stuff. And Edison has a huge part of the history of filmmaking overall, because he tried to make a monopoly out of it.
Yeah, actually, I know this story.
Yeah.
Because he kept trying. He would sue every movie maker, saying that you owe him a portion of the profits for whatever using his production or using his cameras. And it got to the point where all the filmmakers ran to California.
Mm-hmm.
And set up out there. They were too far for him really to do anything with his lawyers. And since it was California, and Southern California had nice weather all the time, and there was within 2-3 hours of drive, there was so many different landscapes and environments they could shoot anything they needed to.
And thus Hollywood is born.
Yeah, actually, if somewhere in my files I've got a photo of it was a map made of California, and shows in each area marked out. This could be stand in for medieval England. This could stand in for Egypt. This could stand in for et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And this was made in the 1920s or 30s.
Now, as much as Edison does have problems with the film industry, which he finally got struck down, and Congress was like, you can't do the whole monopoly thing anymore. Not okay, dude.
Well, also I think it's because of some of the things he was trying to claim as his own work. Turned out that the French had actually worked on it beforehand.
Yeah, the Lumiere brothers and all of that.
Right, right.
But Edison can be lauded, I guess, for the first publicly released color film, and for the first known and only surviving film with live recorded sound made to test the Edison kinetoscope.
Yeah, wasn't that the Dixon experimental sound film?
Indeed it was.
Yep, I have seen that,
yep.
With the two guys dancing. I actually read a very strange article about, how that was the first point of homosexual filmmaking. I'm like, I don't think that's exactly what they were doing. Don't get me wrong, I have no problems with the homosexuality or about, some kind of bridging the gap of time periods and the what's it called, the lavender curtain.
Yeah, something like that.
But I think it was basically they just had two guys that needed to dance.
Yeah, and at this time, you're just testing stuff.
Right. It was never meant for public consumption.
Right. But first publicly released color film just barely predates that in 1895. And it is Annabelle's Serpentine Dance. Annabelle Whitford Moore did dance routines on vaudeville, and she was tapped by Edison and co. to do some dances, which, very well pleasured the male population.
Of course. I mean, this was a time period when showing off your ankle was considered scandalous.
Oh, ankle!
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, it was hand-tinted, so we don't have Technicolor yet.
Right. Now, do you know if this film actually still exists, or do we just have stills of it?
I actually have a copy of it at home.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
It's
amazing stuff. It's amazing the stuff that has survived.
Not necessarily a reel or anything. I have it on a VHS tape, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have it on reel, it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that'd be...
We should do an episode about lost films at some point.
Absolutely. See, from there, we have the first human special effect.
Okay.
The execution of Mary Queen of Scots.
Ow! Ow!
Yes,
Ow.
cue the Monty Python.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
No. Basically, the idea is that Mary knelt down and put her head on the block. The people stop the film, and they pop her out for a dummy, start the film again, executioner takes down the axe, and there you go.
Uh-huh.
Beheading.
Yep.
And then we hit Méliès.
Yes, Méliès.
Head on.
Boof. Now, for those who don't know who George Méliès is, first off, I recommend seeing Martin Scorsese's excellent film, Hugo. Because A, it's a really, really gorgeous film, and it's really well told. And B, it does tell the story about George S. Méliès, who is known as the father of cinematic special effects.
Yes.
A lot of people have seen the classic shot of the moon with a rocket or a bullet in its eye.
Yep.
That's from The Earth to Moon, which was a adaptation he did of Jules Verne's classic novel From Earth to the Moon.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the legend here is that he was doing little film experiments, and one day his camera jammed during filming. And so when he was looking at the footage that he still had left over, suddenly a man walking down the street became a woman. So he was like, I wonder what I can do with all this. And so then you have the fertile grounds of Méliès's career.
Excellent. All right, well, we gotta go ahead and jump ahead, because we could be here for hours talking about every little minutia of special effects. Why don't we go to... Well, we just might jump to La Voyage dans la Lune, or a.k.a. Trip to the Moon.
Okay.
It's in 1902. It's French.
Yep.
Contained 30 separate tableaus with innovative illusionary cinematic editing techniques. Used a lot of the new superimposed images, double exposures, dissolves, etc., etc.
Which were very revolutionary for their day in and of themselves.
Okay. And also, I just want to make a quick note that Jules Verne did stuff in his novel that is considered revolutionary today, and even at the time was considered fanciful. I mean, no one really knew about the lack of gravity or where you would be firing a rocket off from.
Right, right.
And in the novel, it was fired from Florida.
Which, we have Kennedy there, I think?
Cape Canaveral.
Oh, Cape Canaveral, thanks.
It was renamed Kennedy after Kennedy was assassinated, but it's been kind of slowly reverting back to Canaveral.
All right, fair enough.
And also talked about the distance to the moon, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the big difference was that they used gunpowder in launching the rocket as opposed to a solid state, a solid liquid, or a solid state rocket booster, which is what they used today.
They were also backed by the NRA, fun fact.
Really?
Yep.
Who, the trip to the moon, or...
The trip to the moon, yeah.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, fun fact there.
Okay.
And then directly after that is the Great Train Robbery, which
yes,
for many is considered the beginnings of the epic story, even though there are a bunch that predate it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was one of the first movies that had a real story going on. I mean, it was only 10 minutes long, but it kept a lot of different camera positions. It used different editing. It used a couple. They hand-tinted a couple of the shots to add into the dramatic quality.
Yeah,
it was cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our 12 listeners are going, "Come on, say something funny." I don't know what to say funny.
Yeah, we're talking about
funny.
History here, so
yeah, history can be awesome, dudes.
Yeah, humorous phases of funny faces is important to you because we have the first animated 2D film shot.
Yes, shot on a chalkboard.
Yep.
God, can you imagine having to redraw that thing every time?
I have friends who have done this.
Ugh.
Yeah, I don't envy them. If I'm gonna do animations, I'm gonna do something more in the lines of Terry Gilliam's animation, where it's all cut out.
Actually, why don't we go ahead and just jump to 1914?
All right.
Because we'll talk a little bit about Gertie the Dinosaur.
Yes, Winsor McCay.
Yes, Winsor McCay, an absolute genius. I mean, when you use the word genius, a lot of people are like, well, I don't know about that. I mean, is Kanye a genius? And my answer is no. But Winsor McCay is an honest-to-God genius. He was the first to create an animated film that interacted with the audience and interacted with a character on stage.
It was the film's advertisement, funny enough, called it the greatest animal act in the world.
Mm-hmm. Now, this was before the invention of celluloid animation, which is basically taking a picture and drawing it on a piece of plastic, and then laying it on a pre-made background. So every one of these, everything in the background and everything in the foreground had to be drawn every time.
Yep.
I mean, Jesus Christ.
I wouldn't blame the guy for just going, "Oh, dang it!
The hell with this."
Yeah. I have wasted my life.
And the first time I ever saw this was actually on an episode of Walt Disney Presents back in the 1980s, when they were doing something about the history of animation.
The Ink and Paint Club or something like that?
I don't think it was Ink and Paint Club. It was basically just a Walt Disney Presents talking about the history of animation, and they were showing something from the 1950s where they had the original film of Gertie the Dinosaur with a 1950s guy doing the standing in for Winsor McCay.
Yeah, I've seen there was actually a DVD release of this with Winsor McCay himself. So that was pretty awesome.
Wow.
Again, it was silent because 1914 sound was kind of a novelty at the time because as we mentioned before with the Dickens dance thing, it was recorded on wax cylinders. So sync was a little bit of a problem. And so you just can't have sound.
No, sound was not a very easy thing to do at the time. It wasn't until the 1920s when the two process what was it? Crap, I can't remember the name of it. Basically, when they were able to put sound in with the film and sync it up. If you ever get a chance, by the way, you haven't gotten that far, but if you find Von Wasser and his singing duck, you must watch this.
Yes, I've heard about this. It's in the National Film Registry.
It's on the Film Registry. It's on YouTube, and every time I watch it, every time I'm depressed or sad, I watch it because I can't stop laughing.
Okay. Hey, here's another important milestone here.
Uh-huh.
The Gulf Between, the first feature-length motion picture in 2-strip Technicolor.
What year was that?
1917 to 1918.
Okay.
It's a lost film, unfortunately, with only a few frames surviving.
Yeah, I remember the 1960s. Warner Brothers had a huge fire, and it destroyed thousands of films.
Yeah,
including one I've always wanted to see, which is called London After Midnight, which is one of Lon Chaney's lost performances.
Yeah. There's also another one that was gotten rid of because of the Hollywood Code.
Oh?
Yeah.
Was it too dirty?
Yeah. And so Warner Brothers was like, we can't show this, we're not going to make a dime off of it, let's use it for fuel or something. And so, a few years later, when the Hays Code has finally been taken off because suddenly people are going and seeing foreign films to get their rocks off. Oh. And so they're like, okay, now we can use all these movies that we've had in our vaults for, forever. Let's show them. And so they go and look for this film, and it's just not there anymore. So very, very definition of a lost film.
It's like all the Doctor Who episodes. I think we talked about that on our last podcast, which I don't think we're going to release because we were screwing up badly on that one.
Yeah. Basically, what I'm thinking is, what we'll end up doing is we'll release the first 2 podcasts as like bonus episodes.
Okay, that sounds good.
Not long after The Gulf Between, we have 1922's The Toll of the Seal. The Sea, not the Seal. Anyway, it's...
Which also, I do want to mention, has Anna May Wong, which is the first big-time Chinese-American actress.
Yes.
We can get into Hollywood racism another time, but holy cow. I watched the Cinema Snob do John Wayne's The Conqueror last
Oh
night.
yeah,
I was uncomfortable.
I can imagine.
I was so uncomfortable. I mean, sorry, John Wayne should never, ever be a Mongol warlord. Ever. I mean, it's almost as bad as Mickey. It's almost, but not quite, as bad as Mickey Rooney as the Chinese guy in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Otherwise, a flawless film. I mean, I love Audrey Hepburn. I love George Papard. They did such a wonderful movie. Had such great chemistry. And then you've got Mickey Rooney doing this ding-dong ching-chong routine. I'm like, please just shoot me.
Oh God. Not long after that, we have a Fritz Lang piece.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. He's my man.
Oh yeah. We have Siegfried, which also has a sequel to it called Kriemhilde's Revenge.
Aha, based on the... Now, was this based on Robert Wagner, Ring Cycle, or was this based more on the legends?
It's based on really both. The opera, funny enough, has bits and pieces in it. Bits and pieces of the opera are actually used for the soundtrack. I have both films on VHS.
Nice.
So, one of my all-time favorites.
One of the first operas I ever watched on recommendation of my father. My dad loves opera, and no one else in our family even tries to watch opera because it sucks. But back in the late 80s, the Metropolitan Opera Company staged the full Nibelungenlied.
Dude.
And showed it on PBS.
Yeah, they did something similar rather recently.
But this was like 8 hours long.
Same.
And my dad and I sat and watched the entire thing. And God bless him, I tried. I tried to like it. I'm not built for opera. I'm built for like concept albums and musical theater, but not opera. I mean, you stick me down and make me listen to a Proto-Man album, or Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime, or Les Miserables, or Spamalot. I'm all over that shit.
Fun fact.
You stick me down and watch opera, I'm like, oh, kill me.
Fun fact. Did you know that Christopher Lee, the badass, may he go on forever and ever?
Oh God, yes. I think death is afraid of him.
Yeah.
Sort of like death was afraid of Theodore Roosevelt.
But anyway, the point I was going to make was that he actually wrote a rock opera.
Yes, actually, I heard about that.
I want to hear it and watch it and stuff. So, yeah.
I want to hear it and watch it and rub it all over my body. Okay.
The Lost World comes not long afterwards.
Oh yes. Lost World. Willis O'Brien.
Yes. Who would go on to do King Kong.
Mm-hmm. And help train Ray Harryhausen.
Yes.
Who is, to this day, still considered probably the greatest stop-motion animator of all time.
Yes. I easily one of my top 50s, actually I'm pretty sure it's going to be like in my top 20, is Jason and the Argonauts.
Oh, Jason and the Argonauts. The fight scene with the skeletons is amazing. Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, one of my favorite movies of all time.
And then after we have that notable note, we then have The Jazz Singer.
Yes, Jazz Singer was the first full-length complete sound film. And I want to say this to the quiz masters of 1988, you fuckers are wrong.
Oh, what's the argument here, bro?
The argument was, what was the first full-length sound film? I zapped in, said Jazz Singer, and they said no, it was a movie called City Lights. And I argued up and down that no, it was Al Jolson in The Jazz Singer, and they would not take it.
Yeah, I'm not saying City Lights here.
Apparently, it was... Now, according to apparently Jazz Singer was not the first. It was the first one with spoken dialogue was synchronized, and City Lights was the first one to ever actually have fully. It was literally the first full-length sound film. But I still say Jazz Singer is much better known, and fuck them all.
Well, yeah. Plus, Jazz Singer doesn't actually have the whole film with sound.
Right.
It's. I remember watching it the first time, and I'm
wrong.
thinking, all right, when's the sound kicking in? When's the sound kicking in? And remember, I was like 7 at the time.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I'm already pretty okay with silent films, but now you've got me going, okay, we're getting sound in. Great, great. You're silent already. Great. Okay. Okay. Broadway!
Broadway, mama!
Yeah, finally
And then
we
you have John
get...
Joseph in blackface,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh dear God.
Yeah.
I try not to be embarrassed for the past. I really don't. I mean, I understand it was a different time period. I mean, I've watched, Bugs Bunny Nips the Nips and the cut versions of Fantasia, and I understand they were a different time period.
Oh yeah,
but it doesn't make me any less uncomfortable.
Bunch of the Band 11, so.
Oh yeah, the Band 11s. To those who do not know, there are 11 cartoons that were banned by Warner Brothers, and they're they will never broadcast them again. However, you can find them on YouTube.
And I think some of them are on DVD now, but they're in the bonus
Coal Black
features.
and the Seven Dwarfs.
I love that one.
I don't know if I love it or not. I mean, it's funny.
Oh yeah.
But it's sick. The thing is, if you actually look at the history of that film, it was honestly done as a love letter to black music at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it used the best black African American musicians that were working in Hollywood at the time. It used the best singers at the time. The animation is flawless.
It's
just freaking racist as hell.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why it is banned.
Yeah.
After Jazz Singer.
Oh, I know what's coming here. I know what's coming here. Metropolis!
Yes.
This movie has had such a history. Oh my god.
Yeah.
We could do an entire damn podcast just on this movie.
We should.
Yes, we should. We should talk about, the restoration of the film, the ongoing restoration.
Have you seen?
Where did they find it? Venezuela?
Yeah, Venezuela
they found
or
a work
Argentina.
print in Venezuela, and then there was the 1980s revival they made with songs by Queen and Pat Benatar.
Actually, Queen wasn't involved. Freddie Mercury was involved. Because I've actually seen that version as well. Okay. Like I said, okay. Just a note. When I say that Metropolis is my favorite movie of all time, I'm not kidding. And I have seen almost all of the versions of it, too.
Yeah.
I've seen the 1950s monster movie version. I've seen...
Wait, there's a 1950s monster movie version?
Yeah, it was released on a set of 100 horror films, which I got from a friend. And it's... basically take everything that the 80s version... Because the 80s version is... as silly as it is now, a very earnest attempt at trying to restore it.
Okay.
Take all of the stuff that was added in the 80s, take that all out, and put it in even more poor quality. There's no real opening.
Wow.
I mean, it's a train wreck.
Sounds like it. Just as a quick aside, this is why I very rarely loan DVDs and Blu-rays out to any of my friends. I had bought back in 2002, 2003, what was at the time the highest level restoration of Metropolis.
So
it's
I'm
like
guessing...
a 3-hour documentary, and this before the Venezuelan work print was discovered.
So like 2008 or 2002?
2002.
Okay.
And I got this up in Ann Arbor, and it cost me $40, but it was worth it to me.
All right. And
then I moved down. Then I moved down to Florida, and there was this young lady I was working with at Disney, and I'm sorry, I'm a sucker for a nice pair of for pretty eyes and a nice pair of breasts. I'm not gonna lie.
Don't be ashamed, man. Don't be ashamed.
I'm not ashamed, but she had never seen the Maltese Falcon.
I have that on DVD too.
I have that too now. Actually, I have that the Treasure in Sierra Madre. I have the Casablanca is probably my favorite movie if we want to go into what we consider the greatest films of all time.
All right.
It's followed very closely by A New Hope, which is a Star Wars movie, because it evokes such emotions.
Oh yeah,
but
that one is actually in my personal collection, Casablanca.
Okay, continuing on to the story though. She had never seen. She'd seen Casablanca. She'd seen a bunch of other Humphrey Bogart movies, but she'd never seen Maltese Falcon. And I was working with her at Disney. I'm like, okay, well, I kind of want to get with her. I kind of want to, get something going on. So I loaned her Maltese Falcon, but I knew she liked classic movies, so against my better judgment, I loaned her my $40 copy of Metropolis.
Oh, boy.
2 weeks later, she got transferred. I never saw her again.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. I feel for you,
now,
bro.
the only copy, I do have the Metropolis that was the fully restored one from 2008. Was what the latest restoration?
The most recent restoration was like 2012.
Okay, I got the most recent one. I actually got it from a friend of mine who taped it off or DVR'd it off of Turner Classic Movies.
Fair enough. I actually have it on DVD.
He did that plus the documentary, and I've got those on disc somewhere. But still, I'm just like, So this is what, and I have lost so many damn DVDs from other people. Like I've loaned them out because I want to share. I love to share what I love.
Oh yeah, that's
and then
why
they disappear.
That's why I have people come to my place to watch things. I do not loan things out.
I need to start doing this.
Yeah, that's why.
I had.
That's why I haven't taken you up on any of your offers to loan me stuff.
You need to come over to my place.
Fair enough.
We have a couch. We have food. I will feed you.
Awesome. We'll call it a plan sometime.
Do you have any food allergies or things you don't eat?
Nope.
All right, cool. I will make pork loin with herbe de Provenance. It'll be nice and juicy, and we'll make awesome food.
Rad.
And I'll make some snack food or something.
All right. So to get back to our.
I'm sorry. Can we pause this for a second? I really got to use the restroom.
Go ahead, man.
All right, I'll be right back.
All right. Secretly, we've switched Dan's Folgers coffee with... And meanwhile, back at the ranch, we have the amazing talents of... Well, while he's out, I guess I'll take a bit more time to talk about some of the things that I'm really into. I've been a Mystery Science Theater 3000 fan since infancy, basically. I have been a fan of Red Dwarf, off and on, and I was finally able to watch all of it when I really got into my teens. Mystery Science Theater 3000 is very important to me. I did a book report in the 6th grade, a video book report actually, that I built a cardboard Crow-T robot and my brother built a cardboard Tom Servo, and I played Joel, and I was selling the Mystery Science Theater 3000 Amazing Colossal Episode Guide. So, that was fun. Star Wars has been omnipresent in my youth. So has Star Trek, really. I really got into it with Deep Space Nine. Oh, you're back?
And lo, like the prodigal son, I've returned.
Alright. I was actually regaling the audience with a little bit more of my backstory.
Okay. I was talking about DS9, but that was all. I walked in the middle of that.
Yeah, I was basically getting into the things that have been omnipresent since my childhood. Right. Anyway, so back to our original point here.
Okay, let's go do some skipping. We'll go. Are we still in Metropolis, or are we moving on?
We're moving on. That's for another show.
Okay.
Steamboat Willie comes out 1928.
Okay. Now, I just want to make a quick aside. Steamboat Willie was not the first Mickey Mouse cartoon.
It wasn't.
No, it was actually created by the first one was called Plain Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That was made by Disney and his animator Ub Iwerks.
Yep.
But it was a silent film. Disney himself had been going through some financial issues.
And that's for another episode too.
Right. Basically, he had a character named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which was stolen from him by the Walter Lantz Productions, which went on to make Woody Woodpecker.
Yep.
But they made Plain Crazy and they made Galloping Gaucho, and then sound effects started coming into movies. And they took the third one, which is called Steamboat Willie, and recast it with sound effects and a fully orchestrated soundtrack.
And it's still entertaining to this day.
Oh, yeah. Mickey was an asshole. Man, what things he did to animals in those cartoons, these early cartoons. Holy cow!
Yeah, dude. Man with a movie camera is also important, but not really as much for special effects. It's kind of a city symphony of a documentary. I saw it this morning, and I love it. But that's really for more of like an art house film discussion, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we can do that. We can sit around and drink martinis and discuss that as our hoity-toity voices.
Indeed.
Let's jump to 1931. One of your favorite movies, one of my favorite movies, M.
Yep.
Which was Fritz Lang, the creator of Metropolis, also did an amazing film based on the murders of Peter Kürten, I believe his name was.
Yeah, something like that.
He was a serial killer in Germany in the 1920s, and it starred Peter Lorre in his first lead role, but it was the first sound film that was done by Fritz Lang. And what really made it really good was he had the main character whistling the Hall of the Mountain King every time he was about to commit a murder, and it was just an amazing film.
And this movie was really, really ballsy too, because at about the same time, Fritz Lang was trying to leave Germany as well.
Yes. There's an apocryphal story that he was asked by the Nazis to be basically the head of the Nazi film department, and he said he'd think about it and walked into another room and then immediately exited out through another room and ran from Germany.
Yep. Next we have The Invisible Man, and shortly after that, King Kong.
Yes, King Kong, another Willis O'Brien classic.
Mm-hmm. I have that one on Blu-ray, actually.
One of the funniest stories I like about King Kong actually was in the 2005 Peter Jackson version.
Uh-huh.
That the guy who owned the original armature of King Kong was asked to let them put it in the one of the frames as an homage to the original, and it disappeared off site for a day or two.
Oh, dude.
And Peter Jackson's freaking out because this thing's worth thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And also, it's an irreplaceable piece of history of Hollywood history. Well, apparently, a couple of his animators had taken off with it and animated it.
Oh, jeez.
And it's actually included on one of the on the DVD as one of the extras.
Okay, this I have to watch because I think I actually have that movie on DVD. I've just never watched it.
Right. It's okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Peter Jackson. I watched I think I've seen almost every one of his movies except for Heavenly Creatures.
All right.
I've seen Bad Taste, and I've seen Dead Alive, and I've seen God bless me, I've seen Meet the Feebles. I will never subject you to that. I like you too much.
Fair enough.
I've seen The Frighteners.
But you have to admit though, you really can test the strength of a friendship if you can show your friend the most horrible films of all time.
This is true.
So I actually kind of sealed the deal with one of my friends by showing them Manos: The Hands of Fate.
Manos: The Hands of Fate, otherwise known as Hands: The Hands of Fate.
So he didn't leave screaming. So
did you show him the original, or did you show him the MST3K version?
I was merciful and showed him the MST3K version.
Okay, that's pretty much the only way I can watch that film.
I've seen it both ways. I still think it's hilarious. Anyway, in 1935 we have the first 3D movie, Audioscopics.
That was more of a. I'm not sure if that was actually for public consumption, or was it done as a special effect?
It was. Hang on. Semi-documentary film narrated. I couldn't say. Anyway, while we're still young, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs comes out in 1937.
Yep, that was the first full-length hand-drawn computer animation. Now, it was not the first. Now, don't listen to what Disney says. It was not the first animated film ever released.
It wasn't.
No. Why don't you tell the story a little bit? You know a little better than I do.
We're talking The Adventures of Prince Ahmed by Lottie Reniger.
I am.
Oh, God, I love that film.
I watched that, and actually the first time I ever saw that was on Turner Classic Movies.
Same here, actually. My parents recorded it off the television, and ever since then, I love it.
Yeah. Now, it was very well done. Now, speaking of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, we should probably mention a couple cartoons that came out before that were basically testing grounds for the animation that would be used in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. For example,
Goddess of Spring and
Goddess of Spring and the Old Mill.
Ah, yes, yes.
The Old Mill was actually well known because it was the first one to ever use what's called the multiplane camera,
Yes.
which allowed different levels of backgrounds to create a perception of depth.
Mm-hmm. From there, we also have The Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz was amazing, especially the tornado.
And much like Metropolis, I don't think we should cover it today.
No, we should cover it today. However, the one of the most spectacular special effects in that film was the tornado.
Yes.
Which was actually created using a Muslim sack, which at the time, literally they had no idea how they were going to do it. I heard another apocryphal story that they asked the special effects artist, "How would you do this?" He's like, "I have no idea, but it's going to cost $10,000." And he did it for $10,000.
There you go.
There was an episode of Hollywood Treasures, which was a show on Sci-Fi Channel a couple of years ago, where he would travel around and find Hollywood artifacts and sell them for a certain price, where he was given a shot to go into the soundstage where the Munchkin Village was, and to dig under a couple levels of the floor to look for yellow brick road, look for the yellow bricks.
Huh.
And unfortunately, he was unable to find any.
That is too bad.
But still, that's something kind of cool thing. And apparently, the witch's hat that was used in the film is located somewhere in Northwest Ohio.
Seriously?
Yes, it's owned by some nice lady who bought it like 40 years ago and has been holding on to it ever since. And one of the episodes is he traveled to Northwest Ohio to go try to buy it from her, and she still wouldn't sell it.
1940, Fantasia comes out.
Fantasia is, to this day, one of the most amazing films ever made.
Yes.
It was, as far as I can say, that is the high point of Disney animation. That is the high point of animation, period.
Absolutely. I mean, really, in essence, Fantasia is really the first music video of all time.
Yeah.
But also, it has amazing visual effects. Some of them are... the Toccata and Fugue, for instance, is very heavily inspired by the work of Oscar Fischinger or something like that. I'm drawing a blank, but
okay.
Yeah, I actually got to see some of his stuff at the Gish. Really cool. We also have Chernabog, and Fantasia is also important because it created surround sound, essentially.
What they called Fantasound at the time.
Yep.
It was the first full multi-channel stereo sound.
And only 6 theaters were equipped to play it.
Yep, which kind of sucked, honestly.
Yep.
But I have seen Fantasia in movie theaters since, with the full modern Dolby surround sound, and it is amazing to hear. Couple quick asides about Fantasia, though. The original soundtrack was recorded by the Philadelphia Philharmonic under
Leopold
Stokowski. And in the early 80s, the original sound had deteriorated enough that they decided not to use it anymore when they did the re-release in 1982. So they got concertmeister Irwin Kostal to handpick an orchestra, and he did, and created a full Dolby Digital surround sound version. It's called the Red Label, and it is freaking amazing.
And we also sadly lost the Deems Taylor narration between segments too.
Yes. It was actually redone by Dawes. I can't remember the guy's name. He's a well-known Disney voice actor, but he redid a lot of the Deems Taylor stuff later on.
Yeah.
When they went back to the original recording. I don't know how I feel about that, because even though with modern digital restoration they were able to save a lot of the original, it doesn't have the strength that Irwin Kostal's recording did. Anyway, so let's go ahead, and we're not going to really talk about Citizen Kane because it's really not that much on special effects.
Yeah, it's more a director's film. Like I said...
Yeah, it's a director's film. It's an amazing film, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love the film.
When we...
I'm not a huge fan of it by itself, but the technical achievements in it were amazing.
Yeah, we'll have to do that as a separate episode, much like Metropolis and Wizard of Oz.
Right, and we go into Mighty Joe Young,
Yep.
which was 1949. We're going to basically skip over most of the 1940s. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
But that was the first film that Ray Harryhausen really worked
Mm-hmm.
on. And we'll be discussing Ray Harryhausen. We could do an entire episode on Ray Harryhausen as well.
Yes. Because I love his films, and I know you love his films.
Oh, God, yes. Well, I'm going to tell a quick story.
Go ahead.
Many years ago, back in the 90s, Ray Harryhausen was the guest of honor at Marcon in Columbus. It's still a sci-fi fantasy con. It's not as big as it used to be. I went from like 1990 to 1999 to maybe 2002. Now I think I went up to 2002, and then I basically broke this young girl's heart, and I've never gone back because I feel like such a fucking ass.
Fair enough.
I've been a dick in my past. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. Anyway, I had a big display case of a lot of the amateurs that Harryhausen had built or his father had built. And I'm standing there, like, kind of wiping the drool off the corner of my mouth, going, "Oh my God!" And this little old dude standing there, like, "So what do you think of the Harryhausen?" Anyway, I'm like, "Oh my God!" Talking about the work he'd done in space versus Earth versus the flying saucers, and the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, and Clash of the Titans has always been
It's a staple film.
Cultural. It's a staple film of my childhood. And he's like, "Yeah, animating that Medusa was a bitch."
Yeah.
And I kind of looked at him and went, "What? Huh?" He's like, "Hey, Ray Harryhausen, nice to meet you, son." I lost it. I was gone.
That is.
I went from intelligent to complete fanboy in 2.2 seconds.
Dude, I
was like, I did it. Oh my God, I did Harryhausen. And I was like,
would. So he doesn't tell you, and you're completely comported, and then he tells you who he is, and you're just like, ah!
Pretty much. I was done. He's like, "Well, you have a good day, sir." I'm like, "Okay, you too, Mr. Hausen."
You called him Mr. Hausen.
Yes, I did.
Oh, you poor, beautiful dork, you.
It's like the Calvin and Hobbes cartoon when he's like looking inside of Calvin's brain when he gets totally freaked out. I'm like, that's pretty much how I was. I'm like, abort. Oh, man. Okay.
From there
the 1950s were really when sci-fi movies started to come into the forefront.
Yes, and I believe this is kind of where our two collective experiences really mesh.
Yes, they did.
Day the Earth Stood Still was also on Mystery Science Theater 3000.
It was?
Yes, it was.
I don't remember being there. I remember when they did This Island Earth, but I don't remember the Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yep.
I remember back in the 80s, the movie channel was having a turkey marathon for Thanksgiving, and my dad getting pissed off because they put the Day the Earth Stood Still included in that list. And frankly, that is definitely not a turkey. That is a really, really good sci-fi film.
It's influential, I'll give it that.
Klatu barata niktu.
Yeah,
Have you seen it?
I'm trying to remember which season that is. I think it's season 4.
To the internet.
Yes.
Day the Earth Stood Still, MST3K. No, apparently it's not.
Hang on, feel free to do your own little extra bio.
Now, the Day the Earth Froze is one of them.
Yeah, I know that. But, yeah, Day the Earth Stood Still is also an episode in that season. Anyway, I'll be right back.
Okay. So, anyway, hello, folks. Let us continue on. Now, Jason the Argonauts is one of my favorite movies. But basically, we're going to the 1950s. Let's talk a little bit about House of Wax, which is one of the first 3D movies that was ever released, starring the great Vincent Price. The funny thing is, one of the first exposures I ever had to Vincent Price was I can't find any information about the show, but it was on the Disney Channel in the early 80s, where he would go on and talk about letters he'd received from children, and he was the nicest old grandfather you could possibly imagine. He was wearing a yellow cardigan. He was like some sort of weird flip side of Mr. Rogers. I don't know. So anyway, we're going to talk about a little bit about the Creature from the Black Lagoon. A couple years ago, I went to I think Cypress Springs or Silver Springs in Florida, where they shot the movie, and I got to see a couple of the areas where they filmed the movie. One of the reasons they used it was because the water is so crystal clear. And I do remember in one of the shops they had a movie poster signed by all the major actors. It was really quite cool. 1954, we have Gojira, which was the first of the Godzilla films, which a lot of people have said that is a nothing more than a analogy or a metaphor for the atomic bomb. This is this great, horrible creature that was created because of man's tampering with nature. But Godzilla has continued onwards. Am I the only one that think that Godzilla really needed to go on a diet for the newest Godzilla flick? At least it wasn't that horrible Matthew Broderick film. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love Matthew Broderick. I mean, I grew up with him, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Lady Hawk, and War Games, but god damn, that movie sucked. It just was awful. Beyond awful. Alright, 1954, we also have the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which at the time was the most expensive movie that Disney had ever done. Gave us the classic design of the Nautilus.
I'm sorry, did you do more movies while I was gone, or did you... What happened?
I kind of touched on a couple. I touched on House of Wax.
Okay, cool.
I talked about the time I visited the shooting area for Creature of the Black Lagoon.
Yes.
I actually was... I believe it was... It's either Cypress Springs or Silver Springs in Florida, and they used it because the water was so clear. And one of the things I thought was really cool was they had a movie poster signed by all the cast and the director.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about Gojira, a.k.a. Godzilla.
Yes.
And I had just gotten to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Right.
And one of the things I was just about to talk about was Richard Fleischer and his history with Disney.
All right.
Or actually, his father's history with Disney.
Go on.
Okay. Is it Robert Fleischer?
The
Fleischer Brothers Studio?
Oh, Max Fleischer.
Max Fleischer. Okay. Max Fleischer was the father of Richard Fleischer. And I'm trying to remember. It's this weird little domino thing going on. Basically, back in the 30s and 40s, one of Disney's main competitors for the quality of animation, not the quality of the cartoons, but the quality of the animation, was Max Fleischer. Fleischer made amazing cartoons. Actually, when I was a kid, Disney Channel used a show called what was in between some of their Disney cartoons was they chose something called the Fantastic Fleischer Folio, where they would show Max Fleischer cartoons.
Fleischer, of course, also is significant because of his pioneering work with the Superman franchise.
Oh, the Superman, amazing cartoons. If you can find them in public domain, they're definitely worth watching.
Oh yeah, and they
heavily inspired the Batman animated series. But apparently Max Fleischer and Disney did not get along.
Yeah.
They were not, they did not like each other.
Legendarily, even.
Legendarily. One of the things was that Max Fleischer originally wanted to make a fully animated film, and his studio said basically no one would ever sit through that, and then Snow White came out and showed that they would, which led to Gulliver's Travels, which unfortunately is kind of a sucky movie. Gorgeously animated. Story, not
That's
so
too
good.
bad.
But anyway, when Disney asked Richard Fleischer to direct 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, he asked his dad if he could, because he didn't want to cause any issues, and he even let Disney know about this. And to his credit, Walt Disney said, "I can understand this, and please let me know what your father says." And his dad says something along the lines of, "Disney's not paying you enough." And they ended up doing this amazing, amazing film. But if you ever get the DVD, it's hilarious because originally the squid fight was shot in the daytime with no storm, and it looks like a giant rubber squid.
Yes, I've seen some of that footage. It's hilarious.
It looks so bad. It is amazing. And then they basically, at the cost of a couple $100,000, had to reshoot it in the rain, redesigned the squid so it's actually more active. Literally, like Kirk Douglas is at one point in the original shot is arguing with what basically looks like a fire hose, a limp fire hose that is like being thrown at him. It's bad. It's really bad. I'm glad they never actually used it because it would have just sucked.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
from there, we also have Forbidden Planet.
Forbidden Planet is one of the really significant films. Was one of the first ones to ever use synthesizers in its sound effects.
And it's an adaptation of Shakespeare's The Tempest, which is my favorite Shakespeare play.
Right. And also, the animation was done by Disney.
Hurrah, hurrah!
Hurrah, hurrah. Yes, the id monster was actually animated by Disney at the time.
They also had Robbie the Robot.
Yep, Robbie the Robot, one of the classic robots of all time. The owner is the owner of original Robbie is Mick Garris, who is a horror director out of California. He directed the original miniseries of The Stand.
Huh.
That show I was talking about earlier, Hollywood Treasures.
Yes.
Was trying to talk him out of it, but he refuses to sell
Fair
it.
enough. While we're on the subject of memorabilia, you know what happened to the original Gorn costume from Star Trek, the original series episode The Arena? Or just Arena?
No, actually I don't. I can't imagine it survived very well.
It did actually survive. Yeah,
Really?
It was given to one of the producers of the show, and he stuffed it, and put it in his bathroom, and used it as a towel rack.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's a place here in BG called Life Formations. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them at all, but they're one of the top producers of animatronics in the country. You know, the robots that they use at Disney World and Universal and such to pump up. They actually produce them here in BG.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I used to one day I managed to score an interview with them. I was going to write an article about them for the BG News, and I just remember going into their bathroom because I had to use it at one point, and I kind of glanced over to the shower stall, and Frankenstein's monster is looking back at me.
That's just one of those situations of you close the shower curtain because otherwise it's going to just scare the piss right back in.
I'm not going to say what happened, but I don't envy the person who had to mop that bathroom.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
From there, we also have 1959's Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Love that movie. Some of that stuff really stands out to this day.
Yeah. Well, I really...
Especially
embarrassing time. I have not actually seen that movie.
Really? It's actually worth it.
I know. It's on my list of movies that I need to watch at some point or another.
Well, apparently that was the movie that got Sean Connery the James Bond gig.
And it influenced George Lucas as well.
Mm-hmm. But the scene with the death hearse and the banshee are just to this day still they hold up.
Oh yeah. Next is The Parent Trap, another Disney.
That was one of the first ones to use split screen to a very, very effective way.
Yeah.
And then we get into The Birds.
Yes.
Which at the time was Alfred Hitchcock's most expensive film. Now this was one of the interesting ones because Ub Iwerks, who had been working for Disney and off and on for many, many years, designed the special effects for these birds.
Huh. Didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like Hitchcock as much as the next guy, but I really pay attention to his earlier stuff. Although North by North,
Foreign Correspondent, and, Man Who Knew Too Much, the original version,
stuff like that. Although
I've got a collection of like a lot of his early stuff.
Although I have to say, North by Northwest is actually number 3 on my top 5 list.
It's so hard picking it, considering a top 10. I mean, there's movies I can watch over and over again, but not because they're good, because they're just great junk food.
Yeah.
I mean, like The Last Starfighter, which was we'll get to that later, but it was It was the first movie to use computer generation as its main special effects.
Yeah.
And it's a fun flick, and I can watch that over and over again. I've probably seen that movie 100 times.
I actually still have it on VHS.
But no one will ever say it's a great movie.
Oh, yeah, no. Although, actually, there is one person who will say it's a great movie. It's my dad. He loves that movie with a passion. And he tried to show it to my brother and I back to back after showing us an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I'm sorry.
Well, I feel bad for him because we just mocked it mercilessly. We were just like, "You're showing this us because it's fodder, right? Right?"
And it's pretty. But it's not great. It's not bad. It's just it's a fun.
As I remember,
film.
he was just pissed off because we clearly didn't understand it.
Yeah, of course you don't understand the quality and depth of this
Yeah.
film.
And really, that's the only film that he's ever done that with to my siblings and I.
Okay, then 1963, we get to Jason and the Argonauts, another Ray Harryhausen classic.
Yes.
Which is very well remembered for its the skeleton fight, which even to this day is still referenced in sci-fi, in science fiction and fantasy films.
Yep. I, again, have that one on DVD.
Mm-hmm. Remember, they referenced that in The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. Which is actually not a bad film. I actually quite enjoyed that movie. I love
that movie. My mom swears by it, and
I described that there were a couple movies that came out in that time period that were sort of like reimaginings or spiritual successors to earlier films. I consider The Mummy to be a spiritual successor to Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's interesting because it's more influenced by the original Boris Karloff Mummy.
Right, but the way it was done with the 1930s and all the guns, excitement and chases and such, I consider it a spiritual successor. Sort of like I consider the Pirates of the Caribbean, the one with Johnny Depp, to be a spiritual successor to The Princess Bride.
I can
because it's a movie that both men and women can both find something.
I can dig that. Funny thing about you bringing up Indiana Jones and The Mummy in one breath, though, is that every year, at some point, my family has to watch this list of films that we call the Sand in Your Pants Marathon. And it includes The Mummy, The Mummy Returns, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Last Crusade, and the original Stargate movie.
Okay.
So, yeah. After, let's see, it was Jason and the Argonauts.
We're not going to talk about Mary Poppins. I remember your feelings on that.
Yeah, we're just going to skip that one, alright?
Go to 2001 Space Odyssey.
That one I actually really dig. I read the book, and when I first saw it, my parents and I mocked it mercilessly because it is just so boring. But
yes, it is.
It's visually interesting, and
Douglas Trumbull does not fail. He does some amazing work.
Yeah. Plus, the soundtrack is really great to work to. Like, I've done writing and just jam to that all the time. Of course, so by the end of it, when Bowman is turning into the Star Child, my parents are just going, "What the fuck is going on?" One of the few times I actually start swearing in the middle of a movie. And I've already read the book, so I already know exactly what's going on. But
I actually never seen the movie.
Okay, that's.
I'm a bad person.
Yeah, we'll fix these things. We'll fix these things.
I am not a Kubrick fan. I'm sorry. I've seen The Shining and I've seen Eyes Wide Shut. I just don't get them.
All right.
But I'm willing to try.
Yeah. Again, 2001, the first time around, is definitely an endurance test. So, buckle up, Buttercup.
Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to jump to the 70s.
All right.
And let's go ahead and now we're getting into the science special effects that I'm interested in, which is the beginnings of CGI.
Woo!
1973, we got Westworld, starring the immortal Yul Brynner. It's the first movie to ever use full raster or bitmapped graphics to create a infrared point of view of the gunslinger.
Yes.
And this really was the first time, and also in 1972, what was his name? Edmund, what was that? I can't remember the guy's name. I had it earlier. Crap. Why are you showing me this crap? Here we go. Ed Catmull created a computer-animated hand, and he's now he's the president of Pixar Animation Studios, and it was the first time that computer animation was really started to begin. Then we're going to jump from that to Hunger, which we were talking about earlier.
Yes, I actually, while doing research this morning, because I do research up until last minute, I actually watched Hunger and the short film that predates it, Metadata. And this movie hunger will at first confuse you because
Mhm.
it's not like animation as you and I know it.
Okay.
It's more like an early Winsor McKay piece, which it reminds me a lot of the original Little Nemo,
Okay.
but it's also significant. But it's significant here because it's the first to use computer digitization. Excuse me.
You'll
Yeah.
get it. Come on. You can do it.
Digitization.
Yay!
To interpolate or fill in the animated action between various key cells. And this movie is a morality tale, and spoilers if you have any interest in seeing this film, take off your headphones or something, pause it, or just skip a few seconds later.
I'm sure I'll forget it later on anyway.
Yeah. Basically, this guy becomes huge and gluttonous and just unpleasant. And then he falls down a hole and children eat him.
Yay!
Animation!
Yeah, gotta love it. Alright, so we're gonna... Next movie, Future World. Now, Future World was kind of was the final film of Yul Brynner. Sequel to Westworld, and was also the first use of 3D CGI.
Yes.
For a brief representation of Peter Fonda's animated face and hand. It was actually created by the computer visual effects company Triple I, which worked on the Tron, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point.
Indeed we will.
Yeah. And then we're going to go ahead and skip Close Encounters of the Third Kind because, yes, a great special effect movie, but it didn't really break any ground.
Although...
I mean, it's gorgeous, don't get me wrong, and the documentary is freaking hilarious. But we're going to go ahead and jump into Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
Star Wars. Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. Frank?
Well, my story of Star Wars is 1977. Now, way before you were even a sperm.
Right.
Before your dad might even been a sperm by this point.
No, he actually saw it too.
I remember I was 3 or 4 years old.
Because you and my dad are almost the same age.
Yes, because I'm a perpetual teenager who refuses to grow up. But no, my parents took my sister and I down to Florida. This was our family vacation. We go down there and visit our grandparents every year because my grandparents were snowbirds. And they would basically drop me and my sister off at my grandparents' house, and then my dad and my mom would go on a date. They would go to a nice seafood restaurant and they'd go see a movie or whatever. And this was 1977, and they went to go see this little science fiction movie no one really heard of called Star Wars. And I swear to God, they saw it in a nearly empty theater. Opening freaking night.
Yeah.
And as soon as they got out, they came back to my grandparents' place, grabbed me and my sister, who's about 4 years older than I am, and drove us back to the theater to see the next showing. And we were just entranced. I mean, I grew up. This is the movie of my childhood. I grew up on this film.
Same.
The movie channel, when it first showed it, they were advertising it for weeks in advance, and we grabbed a video cassette and we threw it in the player, and we played that tape till it broke. I mean, honestly, if I had to choose a film I've probably seen more than any other film, it is Star Wars A New Hope, and I can still sit and watch it again.
Absolutely. Although, Star Wars for me might have some competition for most viewed film, because for almost half a year, I watched The Breakfast Club over and over and over again.
The Breakfast Club?
Well...
Don't get me wrong, I love John Hughes, but The Breakfast Club?
Hey, I was a teenager, and it spoke to me.
Really? It does speak to people.
So,
Alright, so
I actually still know all the lines.
Oh, yeah. One of these days, we'll actually find out what Bender's joke ended.
naked blonde walks into a bar with a poodle under one arm and a 2-foot salami under the other. Anyway, then we have Superman the movie. Now,
I just want to say one quick thing. I've never actually seen all of the 1997 re-release of Star Wars because I didn't like it.
Okay.
I didn't like how he went back, George Lucas went back and changed a bunch of things. I didn't like how he put Jabba the Hutt in there. I'm sorry, that 1997 Jabba just looks bad.
Yeah, it's...
It looks bad.
Even the animators who made it were just like, this thing is creaky as hell, and we're just putting it out because Lucas wants it gone. Fuck.
Right, and basically, and this, like I said earlier in the episode, when back when we still had hair, back before we got old. No, 1997, I was doing my internship at Disney, and Star Wars and Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back came out as their re-releases. I saw them all in the theaters, at the AMC, at Pleasure Island, at Disney. And while we're watching the 1997 Star Wars A New Hope, the film broke. So I lost 15 minutes of the film, and I've never gotten around to bothering to see it. I own the movies. I've just never gotten around to watching them. Because every time I get a chance, I watch the original versions.
Yeah, well, I actually have all 3 on my computer directly ripped from our VHS tapes.
Now, from what I understand, you can get the Blu-rays with the original versions. It's just kind of hard right now. Disney is planning on doing it. This is the rumors I've been hearing from some of my sources. Because they know there's been a lot of backlash. So we're just going to see it. Oh, and by the way, have you seen the trailer for the new George Lucas movie?
No.
It's in a computer animated.
Oh, yeah.
That
I saw a thing about it. I was too busy looking
we
at...
discovered that Disney can't... We discovered once again that Lucas can't write.
I skipped...
The man shit out one good thing in his life, and he has ridden that ever since.
I actually skipped looking at that trailer because I was too busy looking at the new Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. His name is Malcolm.
He's Malcolm.
Anyway, so, yeah, I saw that, and it was also on the same day as Terry Gilliam's birthday. So.
All right, so we're about to hit 1980. How long have we been on the air?
A while.
Why don't we go ahead and cut this off, and we'll do a Thou Shalt Not, and we'll continue on to... We're going to hit the 80s, and the 80s are awesome.
So, stay tuned for part 2 next week, I suppose.
Yep, hopefully.
And so
we're gonna have to do a special episode because you and I were talking about doing a Christmas specials we love and loathe, and we're gonna talk about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Peanut special and Star Wars Christmas
and all
special,
the other specials that you love and hate.
A Pac-Man Christmas. I swear to God, these things exist.
I know.
Okay, but how are we gonna do it? Thou shalt not. Now, I will let you do... What should we Thou Shalt Not this time?
When I was looking through basically what we were talking about and thinking, all right, how do we make this all fit together for our Thou Shalt Not? I thought about something that you had said, which was the fact that you don't like all the CGI stuff that they did with Star Wars.
Right. I just don't like how they went back and redid it.
So, here's our challenge for this week. Thou shalt not make a crappy CGI remake of...
The problem is I know they're going to do it.
Go for it.
They've already announced it.
Go for it.
Thou shalt not make a crappy remake of Ghostbusters.
Oh, jeez.
They've actually already announced they're going to try to get an all-female cast of Ghostbusters.
And
I'm just... Part of the charm of the original Ghostbusters is the crappy animation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not make a crappy CGI remake of Metropolis. I'm sorry, I'd love to see a complete version of the film, but that's just entirely the wrong way to do it.
That is just, it's a moment in time.
Yeah.
It's like trying to CGI the American Civil War. It's just so perfect as it is, and just going in and putting, as the colloquial says, putting lipstick on a pig.
Yes.
Thou shalt not CGI.
Thou shalt not CGI enhance Jason and the Argonauts.
I was thinking Forbidden Planet, but yes, that works too.
Because, no. The skeleton battle is already impressive as is. It doesn't need anything more.
I mean, there's a documentary on Netflix about Ray Harryhausen and how many of the modern day directors are so inspired, inspire so many people like James Cameron and Steven Spielberg and Michael Bay and guys, what you say? What about Michael Bay? He does know how to use special effects. I
actually saw that documentary the day Ray Harryhausen died. So,
sad face.
So it's important to me.
Yeah. Here's a question, though.
Shoot.
We really need to do an episode about Ready Player One, and I will go through my contacts and see if there's any possible way I can get Ernie Klein to come on our show.
Dude, that would be impressive.
I have I don't know if I have the ability, but I have the contacts. Would you like to see Ready Player One done with a mixture of CGI and old school special effects, or CGI done to look like old school special effects?
Well, if you recall, they did Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, which is an impressive film in and of itself. I mean, it's not all that great of a story necessarily.
No, it was an important step forward in special effects, sort of like the Final Fantasy, the Spirits Within, was an important move towards forward and computer animation.
Yeah.
It was just a crappy fucking film.
But my point is, if we're going to do, if we're going to have a Ready Player One movie, then I think that we do need to have. Okay, here's my idea, because if we're going to keep it centrally around the 80s, why not just use all 80s special effects?
Yeah, I mean, they did some really impressive stuff in like Blade Runner and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Tron, obviously.
Oh yeah. Plus, I mean, it's Ready Player One, and it's all about. It's a love letter to the 80s. So why not Young Frankenstein this and use all of the technology available at the time of the 80s?
Pull some of the old animators out of mothballs and see what they can do.
Because I'm sure some of them would just be like, "You actually want me to do this?"
Yeah, I mean, he's like, the hell? Yeah, that's what we'll get to in the next episode. Is that Jurassic Park was originally supposed to be stop motion? Okay. But anyway, I think Thou Shalt Not. We've covered that now. All right, man. It was good talking to you.
And stay tuned next week for our part 2.
Next episode. Yeah. And I hope to God this all recorded correctly, because I don't really want to do this again.
No, me either.
All right, man. I will. Are you working on Wednesday?
No, actually, I'm off that day.
You are working Thanksgiving?
Yes.
What is it the old gladiators used to say? We who are about to die salute you.
Indeed.
That's pretty much our week. All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Have a good night. Nanu, Nanu. May the Force be with you.
And as I always say, moo.
Late Night Taco Delivery is performed by Daniel Gill and Jonathan Knoll and was created by Daniel Gill. Opening by Jonathan Knoll. If you have suggestions for future shows, themes for Thou Shalt Not, or just want to say hi, drop us a line from wherever you heard us. We'd love to hear from you. Recorded in association with Radioactive Walrus Productions.